Okay, so this mental health moment is going to be around communication and particularly communication with our children. And I think it's going to be a part one and a part two. So, in part one, we're going to talk about how do we communicate with our kids? How do we create space to allow them to communicate with us around our parenting? And part two would be like just, general communication. So, these questions were initially on a post in 2021 where I shared questions that I asked my daughter. And the questions were, how do you know I love you? How do you need me to love you? How do you want me to love you? Or how do you wish that I love you? And part of why I started asking her those questions is because as a psychologist, I'm often working with adults who are working through things that happened in their childhood, often around parenting. And, there are questions about, did my parents love me? Or maybe they didn't feel like their parents loved them in the ways that they need it. And I just think that sometimes it's like a miscommunication, like the way we think about love languages and relationships, there are love languages to parenting. And part of how we make that shift is having these conversations while they're still children. The hard part as a parent is that you're going to ask these questions and you're going to listen. You have to listen without judgment, without interruption, without, giving an opinion or explanation. And then you take that information and see how you can improve your parenting for the sake of your child. And I'm currently reading Bell Hooks. And so a question that I also asked my daughter last night was, what does love mean to you? How do you know that someone loves you? How do you feel love? What are the behaviors of someone who loves you? So these are just some things that I'm learning. Let me know what you think. Okay, so this is part two in a video series around communication. It's actually going to be four, but whatever. Let's just jump into it. So this video is focusing on how do we normalize conversations with our child. And I think part of that normalization is that we're not just focusing on when something is wrong. You're just normalizing that we talk about things. So every day when I pick my daughter up from school or from dance, I ask the question, how was it? And of course, her initial response is, it was fine. It was good. Okay, so that's why I like to have some follow-up questions handy. Here are some questions that I found helpful. Did you have fun today? What were you doing? Who were you with? I ask about the games that they might be playing. Oh, did you cry today? You did? All right. Who helped you? Who are your safe people? And I like to know who are your safe people in these spaces, both for myself, but for her as well, so that she can start to think about that. I ask about challenges, how she worked through it, new things that I know she's learning at school, new dances she might be learning at dance. And the idea is not that all of our conversations are going to be deep, but it does give me insight into how she thinks, who she's spending her time with, how she worked through problems or challenges, who feels safe to her. And it normalizes that we talk through things in our household. And it's kind of cool because now she's starting to ask me questions. How was your day at work? Don't just say you were working. What did you really do? And that's how we start to normalize conversations. The third video of this series is really about the why. Like, why are we, providing space to communicate about our parenting, about things that's going on in their lives, and really teaching communication strategies is because we're all born, we eventually learn how to speak, but we don't always learn how to communicate, to put into words what it is that we're feeling or we're thinking or we're going through. It is even hard, for adults to sometimes put into words when they're having challenges, when they need help, when they may be struggling with something. Sometimes it's hard for people to even communicate their joys. And so all of what we've been talking about is how do we set up the structure, the framework, so that your child learns to communicate, that they're not ashamed about the things they're going through. One of the rules that I started very early on for my daughter is that you'll never get in trouble for speaking your truth, for telling the truth. And that's important to me because I want her to know that no matter how bad it gets or how bad you think it is, we can always talk about it. That there are some things you're going to go through that I have the skills, the wisdom, the life experiences to help you navigate it, to help you think about it differently. And so we want to think about how all of this is connecting the dots to make that possible. And so this is kind of like video 3.1, but the idea is that you're not just communicating about the things that are bad, but you're communicating in general. And so I want to challenge you as a parent, as a caregiver, as an important adult to, someone, or even use these strategies for other people in your life. When they do come to you, when someone disappoints you, when they're going through a hardship, how can you take that not as an opportunity to just like discipline, but really use those same communication strategies to figure out the next steps? So it doesn't mean that there may not be consequences to their actions, but maybe when your teenager comes to you, you're able to process, all right, what are our options now? How do you think we need to move forward? How can we work through this or correct this? How do you feel? Because you want them to start to connect their feelings, their emotions to the actions. You also want them to start to see where the solutions may lie. And so communication isn't just something, and trust is an important part of this communication series, in that it doesn't just start when the problem occurs. You want to be building a foundation so that in the event that they need to come to you, they can. And it is also not just these horrible things. Sometimes teenagers, young adults are going through things and you just need an unbiased opinion or viewpoint of an adult. So all of this was about communication, creating safe spaces, improving your relationship with your child.